Okay, we're ready to get started again. Thank you so much. To begin our open mic tonight, I'd like to read a poem called Changing Genres by Dean Young. I was satisfied with haiku until I met you. Jar of Octopus, Cuckoo's Cry, 575. But now I want a Russian novel. A 50-page description of you sleeping. Another 75 of what you think staring out a window. I don't care what about the plot, although I suppose there will have to be one. The usual separation of the lovers, turbulent seas, danger of decommission in spite of constant war, time in gulps and glitches passing, squibs of threnody, a falling nest, speckled eggs somehow uncrushed, the sled outracing the wolves on the steps, the huge glittering ball where all that matters is a kiss at the end of a dark hall. At dawn, the officers ride back to the garrison, one without a glove, the entire last chapter about a necklace that couldn't be worn, inherited by a great niece, along with the love letters bound in silk. Changing Genres, Dean Young. So whether you believe in reincarnation or not, our question for the month is, what would you like to be reincarnated as? And our first reader in the open mic has said a cat, but not a cat. I've got to bring my glasses here. But not a cat on the street of Florence. Is that right? Okay. Joni Stanglin.
Okay, the rain inspires. This first poem is All Day a Hunger. Because the daughter wants soup tonight, and now it's 5 o'clock, rain whipping the windows, we will have what we have in the cupboard. Plastic sack of lentils, onion, out of oil, butter's better. Oh, a pair of carrots not yet bendy, twin stalks of weary celery finely diced, broth, water, broth, broth, one dried bay leaf. Because we are running behind, must leave soon to visit in-laws on the other side of town, I turn the burner up, watch the flame flower beneath the pot. The daughter has not yet arrived. Oh, tomatoes from the cut-open can, splash of red wine vinegar, 5 shakes of cumin, coriander, twigs of thyme from the backyard, and some sesame seeds. Shadows nestle, flourish in the corners. Because the daughter comes home late, she must bear her bowl and spoon, buckle up, eat as we drive through the night. I have a very fraught relationship with sewing. In fact, I don't sew anymore, and I have an even more fraught relationship with time. So this is When Time Becomes My Best Blue Dress. I wash these hours newly off the bolt, their forget-me-nots and heirloom roses, rinse the length and tumble it dry, each woven minute smelling warm, then smooth the field of cotton lawn until it's level as a lake in still weather. From the packet I slide my patterns, rustling tissues that float on the least air, their numbered shapes like clouds or stars, the hunter, the bear, the woman in the chair. I pin each story like a charm against phone calls, doorbells, the cat's fast paw. Measure, measure, cut or pink, those heavy teeth one way not to ravel. I unpin, chalk the ladder, chalk the rain. I place the right sides of the night together, press a quarter moon and pin. What's done, undone, then done again. My foot steady on the clock, I stitch, seam the edges, minding the allowance. I notch the missing socks, the clotted leaves, baste a couple rows along the waist and gather, pulling gently the seconds that tug the sun up above the mountains. I slip the shell over my hair, my nose, my shoulders. Arms appear where they belong, ready for the sleeve that wears my heart, the one that held young children on my hip. I will fashion adjustments when I can. The hem, sewn by hand, will stay unfinished. Thank you.
Thank you, Joni. And Joni has been featured here before, and thank you for coming. Our next reader has left the answer to the question blank, so maybe she would like to be reincarnated as nothing or everything. Elizabeth Carroll Hayden.
There were just too many choices, and I'm indecisive, especially on a rainy day. I have two short ones. Astray. I lost my coffee, somewhere between the roses and wigelias, or maybe by the sky blue hydrangeas, sitting on the stone wall someplace, curdling cream, drawing a ring around the interior of my mug to remind me later I am as scattered as the rose petals littered on the grass. Only half suburban. Vanity, thy name is husband. In my pink shirt and my matchy-matchy pink pedal pushers, you object to my black shoes that make my skinny white ankles look like sticks.
Thank you, Liz. Liz has been on the board of the Redmond Association of Spoken Word for a number of years, and that would be a good segue into an announcement I wanted to make. For those of you who are interested in coming to the Redmond Association of Spoken Word, if you go to the Old Redmond Schoolhouse Community Center, you will no longer find RASP there, because effective with our next reading in January, we will be moving to the Vala Arts Center in Redmond Town Center, which is really exciting for RASP regulars. We'll be reading surrounded by art instead of in a schoolroom. We've been very grateful to read at the schoolhouse, but starting the last Friday of January, RASP will now be meeting at the Vala Art Center, so please come check that out. And I think we're going to have a bit of a party that first night. And our featured reader that night is Chris Jarmick, who has a new book called Not Allowed. And now for our next reader. Chi-Chi Stewart would like to be reincarnated as a British dog.
How's that? Yeah. This is called it's a look back, tricking the turkey buzzards. High up and away, a speck of black carved slow circles in the air. Lower, bigger with each lazy pass, a sky god scavenging. Perhaps to him I appear a fallen calf, skin bare, pelt partially stripped off, an easy lunch. I tempt him with my body, no thought of what to do should he land. Nigh on now, the shadow of a wingspan, twice my size, flows across the grass beside me. I see his small head, red and ugly, a yellow beak and a focused eye. He sees me for what I am, a child of 8, lying face up and still, arms at my side, in summer's hot softness of grass and clover. With fear and curiosity weaving knots in my belly, like a smaller version of Lot's wife, I have allowed the desire to see turn me into the stillness of salt. Suddenly I roll away and up, running with breath held fast and sure his anger and appetite will strike me down. But no, he lifts with a great whoosh of wing, rises up into the rivers of air, off toward the old oak at pasture's edge. Other gods have since come to visit, then flown away again, reminding me how stillness may invite the unknown to become known, how appearance may attract, but it cannot hold, how curiosity and patience can lead to quick exits and some days wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Guy, who would like to be reincarnated as a tiger.
Hello, everyone. I'm trying to fix this. Some of us are 5'4", so. Is that, do you hear me? Cool? Okay. So I wrote this poem in August, and it's, I wrote it after a conversation with my brother, and it's about people trying to brush stuff under the rug, and I like it's not there. Everything is real. The idea you want to forget is what will only heal. The notion of none is more than no. Buried out of sight is only deeper in the mind. The fear of what might exist in the absence of now can't forgive wishful lines as they recall what never made a vow. In the light of all anything known lies a blank surface of nothing found. But in the shadows surrounding center space focus resides what life never sees around.
Thank you, Guy. Next, we have a butterfly. Faiza Sultan.
Thank you so much. My first time to be here. Beautiful, thank you. I will read two poems. First one, I will read it in Arabic and then the translation in English. I write in Arabic and then my work translated into English and French. This poem is called Let's Give War a Chance, the title of my first book. I wrote this after I saw a bumper sticker says, Let's give war a chance. لنمنح الحرب فرصة كي يمشي الحب حافيا يطرق أبواب الخنادق, so that love can walk about barefoot, knocking at the doors of trenches. كي تلبس الفراشة واقية الصدر عند بوابة كل زهرة, so that butterflies can wear chest armors at the gate of every rose. كي تكشر الشمس عن أنيابها ويحترق الليل, so that the sun can bare its teeth and the night can burn away. كي نبدأ بالعد كم رأسا نحتاج لنفيض نهر, so that we can start counting down the number of heads we will need to overflow the river. كي نحكي قصصا لأطفال مشوهين عن مفخخة في بلاد العجائب, so that we can tell the tales of disfigured children about a booby trap in the land of wonders. كي نتعثر بأجساد منتفخة بالأحلام على أرصفة سوداء, so that we can stumble over corpses bloated with dreams on dark sidewalks. Thank you. My second poem is from my second book, I Am a Visitor on This Earth, translated by Lina Khalf Tofaha. She's a poet and a translator, friend of mine. And poem's title, Who Says Stones Don't Speak? Who says that stones don't speak or cry out, and that flowers don't weep when they are picked? Every day, I cry on the shoulder of a chattering stone in my garden. Who says that wind moves on and does not escape from a determined killer? Since last fall, I've hosted a wounded wind in my home. Who says that sun sleeps at sunset and that the sky does not exile it and replace it with a newer one? Today's sun does not resemble the one from yesterday. Just look at its blush. Who says that soul does not leave you, and the height of meditation, you return on the shoulder of a passionate gull and flow through your body again, another soul? And who says that life is fleeting and death inevitable, and that you won't be reborn in the form of a dove or a bullet or even a shadow? Who says that clouds grant us rain and sometimes blessings, and that they don't wet our parched souls there in the heights, in the highest heights where we reside and rest in my heart each time? Who says that the night is a lover and not a kidnapper of little stars throughout time, dyeing his hair black to conceal his gray? Who said that river is immortal and that its mission is to search for tempestuous sea without resting along the road or dying? Who said that angels only have wings and that they fall under heaven's providence and that they don't sometimes rebel in my hands and remain on earth to interpret my glances and sometimes to sow? Who says that life is the daughter of nature and that our existence is mere coincidence and not a bruise on the face of a drunken fate trying to eradicate us at the gambling table? Who says that the field needs the sun's compassion? The fields of my soul are green, with the moon alone, and with a runaway bird that looks like me. Who says that poets are mad, and they inhabit only the mountains and the valleys? A wise old poet inhabits me, and every morning he bathes my words in rose water and never tires of kissing my soul. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Please come back. About 15 years ago, a friend of mine who was writing a newspaper column in the San Francisco area when I lived there put out a call for stories about Christmas. And this is what I wrote in the form of a haibun, so it ends with a haiku. It's called An Austrian Christmas. During my college years, I once spent a few weeks skiing in the French, Swiss, and Austrian Alps. For the Christmas week, a group of college friends and I rented a mountain chalet a little south of Innsbruck. We anticipated Christmas to be a quiet, melancholy time, as we had no Christmas tree, hadn't planned on exchanging presents, and were all away from our families, who lived all away from our families. However, on Christmas Eve, the chalet owners who lived upstairs in the same building came down with their 12-year-old daughter and knocked on our door. The mother carried a large black metal skillet filled with popping and sizzling pine boughs. In halting English, the daughter translated her mother's explanation that it was their custom to fry a few boughs and to walk around the house, letting the tart pine-scented steam fill each room. So we let them in and followed them around as the mother waved the skillet into each corner of the chalet. We enjoyed the wonderful pine scent for the rest of our stay. It was a wonderful gesture to homesick foreigners, topped only by their inviting us to join them at the small, white-steepled village church to listen to German carols and the ringing of bells at a midnight service. Later that evening, singing echoed through the valley as we first approached the village church in the wintry, alpine darkness. Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht, the squeak of snow in front of the creche. Our next reader is Brandon Pitts, who would like to be reincarnated as a starship captain.
I'm going to read a couple of quick poems. And the first one is about irresponsible media and how these journalists have forsaken their solemn vow for profit. And I'd like to dedicate the first poem to Roger Ailes, CEO of Fox News. Oh, Massa Ailes, why has it been forsaken? Hosanna and her sweet rosary bead. The full custom gospel that you delivered told us we were free. Gone was the solid sender, sweet pretender, and the good news deceit. For the children of Gabriel heard it in a parable while picking in the fields of machine. So why do you dance at the misery ball? Can you tell me, my doctor of theology? For there was a war on earth, fought with misinformation and taxes, waged by private firms who owned public administration. But what is not what once was and does not have to be. So filled with the memory of the thinning that exists around the holy rood, I prayed to the Lord of hosts, and ministering angels descended from heaven to whitewash those crowds with sense, infusing them with the ability to discern many things, secrets, and harbingers to days of sweet nectar, peace, and no more need for the Bible trade. A life of Rosh Hashanah for you, Christmas for eternity, Eid Mubarak, everyone, and salient blessings for all.
I should also mention that Brandon has a new book out and will be our featured reader here at SoulFood next month. So please come back for more of Brandon's poetry on January 21. He'll be reading with Robert Lashley. Who is awesome, yes. January 21, so come back, please. All right. Our next reader is Dennis Caswell, who has no ambition at all. He would like to be reincarnated as God.
Thank you, Michael. So I'm going to read a couple of things, and with apologies to those of you who heard these recently, I'm going to read them again. This first poem is, a lot of poets have a poem somewhere in their oeuvre that is just called poem. So this is mine. Poem. On the internet, you can watch short movies of somebody dying. They used to be longer, but people who aren't dead yet use editing software to cut out the parts where nobody dies. Different editors leave different amounts of time before and after, And sometimes you don't really know exactly when. You only know that a person is in there, and what comes out will not be a person. It might be more than one person. But one thing that's always the same is that the people who stop being people had not been planning to have no more thoughts of not being dead. When there's another shooting, the first thing everyone wants to know is how many people will stop having thoughts. It used to be that in stories, when something bizarre and impossible happened, one person might say to another, "Are we dead?" But no one I know would say that now. We are not dead. They are. That's the only thing anyone says. Excuse me. And this is a little childhood memoir entitled Lesson. She's too much to talk to, like God or June Lockhart. Maybe because she's taller, smarter, and faster than any of us, or because her lips are so full, they never quite close. There's always a tiny aperture beckoning like the old mine entrance Mr. Sandusky crawled into and never came out. She's one of the traffic patrol, wears the red coat with the wide white belt and the matching diagonal strap that slashes her chest like a warning. She blows one whistle and sign bearers step off the curb, plant the poles of their stop signs against their left arches and hold them slanting out to the right like big cherry lollipops. Everyone stops. And the inmates of Harding Elementary School scoot across Fairmont Avenue, each to his private doom. Two whistles orders them back to the curb, and a whistled fanfare brings the troops into formation, beginning the serious march back into the band room and the return to civilian life. It was during this solemn procession that Pete Snyder swaggered along the ranks until he came to the one we all knew he was aiming for, and as he passed her, casually but deliberately thumped his fist against her not yet existent left breast. That was it. She did nothing. No word, no flinch, no glance. So you don't have to talk to her. You can just hit her. Nothing will happen. She'll keep right on walking toward wherever it is they go. Thanks.
Thank you, Dennis. Dennis is featured here before in the past, too. Thank you. Next, we have Dominique, who would like to be reincarnated as a teacup.
Hello. I would like to recite a poem called A War Story. Now, I've never killed a man or been shipped to Afghanistan. I've never carried banner for king, nor country, nor clan. There are no lands that have been lost or won. There are no songs of triumph that'll ever be sung. No. My trenches are the crevices that exist between the folds of my brain. And though I've heeded the call to go over the top all the same, my no man's land does not exist on a physical plane. As Tyler Durden would claim, our great war is a spiritual war. But how does one train for a spiritual war? What is its purpose? Who is it for? And when you find out that the enemy that you've been running from is actually yourself, where do you turn to for help? When faced with these questions, I made the tactical decision to create pacts with psychiatric allies who supplied me with ammunition in the form of psychotropic magic bullets. The war on drugs has a different meaning for me. Now, in order to combat the madness, I would become an assassin to sadness, aiming for the brain and pulling the trigger day after day in an attempt to medicate away the angst and anxiety, but still the struggles raged on inside of me, and those who claimed they would fight for me, the advisors on the council beside of me, would only provide for me bigger, more advanced artillery for these weapons of mind destruction. WMDs have a different meaning for me and were not used sparingly in this war that was waged. One side misunderstood, vilified, seeking only refuge in existence, the other so righteously attempting to annihilate the resistance, using these SSRI bombs to bombard every corner of my psyche until we could cry victory in the defeat of the enemy's melancholy, anxiety, angst, anger, and ennui. Now I fear nothing. Now I feel nothing. For the spoils of war are no prize. No joy can grow, nor happiness rise from these barren lands of battle where the destruction delivered does not bring from dead the casualties suffered. And when I calculate the cost and worth of this scorched, wrought earth, I find myself with a victory as hollow and empty as these pill bottle shells spent to get here, leaving me a shell of my former being. And all I can do is ask why. Why? And finally, clearly, from the darkness, through the silence, echoes of a prophecy once lost to me, telling me, showing me, my Great Depression is my life. Thank you.
Thank you, and keep coming back. Our last reader in the open mic tonight is Jason Zions, who would like to be reincarnated as a parrot, one of the really smart ones. Hopefully not a dead parrot. Jason Zions, who has featured here before too.
It's Norwegian blue, lovely plumage. So I've been chewing on this since I was here as a featured reader. Are all poems soul food? And the thought occurred to me tonight that some are not some soul food, some are purgative, a vomiting of that which would kill us if held within. Poison of the soul, if anything. So. She's building a model of falling water, cantilevered concrete slabs of gingerbread and fondant, propped up by some I-beams carved from homemade candy canes and anchored by cement of royal frosting. The roof can be removed, exposing stickly furniture made of marshmallow and cookies, occupied by tiny little people made of sugar lace and food-safe dye and sheer bravado. Last week, she did a rendering of Gaudi's great Sagrada Familia as it rises over Barcelona, outer facets bas-relief in sugar and molasses, hyperbolic sectioned plinths and corbels carved from halva, perched on columns formed of laminated honeyed phyllo dough and firm expectation. Every year is much the same. She builds these little homes for God and man of edible ephemera, of waking dreams and fairy dust, and steely whim. This is called Pope Gregory's Bitch. The calendar rules her life with a large type block print hand that will not, cannot be denied. She willingly submits to being bound by its conventions. The white shoes are buried in the closet after Labor Day, all neatly closed away in little boxes, and the cutest little shoe trees, all dainty-arched and tiny-toed, the patent leather virgin hump-me pumps and thigh-high do-me boots, preserved until Memorial Day comes again and again. The ornaments come out of the closet the day after she cooks the turkey, slaughtered by her bare hands, the feathers stripped the old school way and saved for use on unsuspecting flesh. The lights come down in January, all lovingly wound, the careful bundles neatly tied with leather thongs, left from gifts she's made herself, for herself, tied with knots she learned from some sailor who was looking for a good time. The capri pants and halter tops, all perky, trim, and taut, populate the dresser drawers and paint her unfoundationed skin with 5% latex, come that April Sunday when the cotton candy ragtop Cadillac emerges like some Leviathan sperm whale for the ritual drive up the coast with her top down in the ever-present rain the calendar has sworn will cease to fall any day now.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you, everyone who's read tonight, and thank you, those of you who came to listen. We need audiences as much as readers. I'd like to close by reading a Billy Collins poem. This is called Japan. Today I passed the time reading a favorite haiku, saying the few words over and over. It feels like eating the same small, perfect grape again and again. I walk through the house reciting it and leave its letters falling through the air of every room. I stand by the big silence of the piano and say it. I say it in front of a painting of the sea. I tap out its rhythm on an empty shelf. I listen to myself saying it, then I say it without listening, then I hear it without saying it. And when the dog looks up at me, I kneel down on the floor and whisper it into each of his long white ears. It's the one about the 1-ton temple bell with a moth sleeping on its surface. And every time I say it, I feel the excruciating pressure of the moth on the surface of the iron bell. When I say it at the window, the bell is the world, and I am the moth resting there. When I say it in the mirror, I am the heavy bell, and the moth is life with its papery wings. And later, when I say it to you in the dark, you are the bell, and I am the tongue of the bell ringing you. And the moth has flown from its line and moves like a hinge in the air above our bed. Good night.